I didn't want to be a half-blood. That's how Percy's story begins. Before Camp Half-Blood, there were 2 movies that should have kicked off a mythology-powered franchise for a new generation. Instead, they became a cautionary tale. For many fans, Percy Jackson and the Olympians wasn't just another book series. It was the series, a modern epic that blended humor, heart, and ancient mythology into something entirely new. It was funny, it was relatable, it was smart. So when Hollywood came knocking, fans were ready to follow Percy anywhere. But they didn't get Camp Half-Blood. They didn't get Annabeth's wisdom or Grover's loyalty. What they got felt like a bootleg Harry Potter with Greek gods thrown in. This is the story of how the Percy Jackson movies lost their way. In 2005, Rick Riordan published The Lightning Thief, the first book in what would become a 5-part saga. By the time the last book, The Last Olympian, hit shelves in 2009, Percy Jackson had sold millions of copies, translated into dozens of languages, and captured the hearts of readers all over the world. It was the next big thing, and Hollywood noticed. Fox quickly acquired the rights and greenlit a movie adaptation. Chris Columbus, the same director who brought Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone to life, was hired to direct. On paper, it looked like a dream team, but then came the first red flag. They aged the characters up. Percy is 12 years old in the books. In the movie, he's 16. Why? Studio logic. Make it more appealing to teens. Make it more mature. But in doing so, they erased one of the series' greatest strengths, its coming-of-age charm. The Percy Jackson books worked because they felt like a kid growing into power, into identity. The gods weren't just distant beings. They were metaphors for adolescence, broken families, and self-discovery. By aging up the characters, that emotional arc got flattened, and that was just the beginning. When The Lightning Thief premiered in 2010, it made money, about $225 million globally, but it didn't make waves. Despite opening at number 2 at the box office, the film dropped over 50% in its second weekend, a clear sign that word of mouth wasn't strong enough to carry it further. Critics called it derivative, fans called it a betrayal. At the time, studios were obsessed with finding the next Harry Potter. Twilight had already exploded. Hunger Games was on the way. Fox executives hoped Percy could be their franchise tentpole. Not just 5 films, but merchandising, games, maybe even theme parks. Instead, the movie underwhelmed in nearly every area outside of the initial ticket sales. Riordan himself famously distanced himself from the project. In leaked emails, he admitted he hadn't even seen the final film. Why? Because the script changes were already too painful. The script as a whole is terrible, he wrote. It is clear they are not following the book at all. Imagine being the creator of a beloved world and watching it reshaped into something unrecognizable. Grover was now a comic relief ladies' man. Annabeth was reduced to a generic action girl with no hint of her book personality. Key plot points were changed. Entire mythological threads were dropped. It wasn't just inaccurate. It was hollow. It felt like a movie made about Percy Jackson, not for Percy Jackson fans. And yet, they tried again. To understand just how muddled things got, we have to look at what happened behind the scenes. After the lukewarm reception of The Lightning Thief, Fox still saw potential in the franchise. But internally, there was chaos. The production team was reshuffled. Chris Columbus stepped back from directing, handing the reins to Thor Freudenthal. The script went through heavy rewrites, this time with an eye on correcting past mistakes, but without fully committing to what fans actually wanted. Budget constraints became more apparent. While the first film had around $95 million to work with, Sea of Monsters had noticeably less room to breathe. Set pieces felt cheaper. The visual effects, especially for the sea creatures and the Colchis bull, lacked polish. Even the Camp Half-Blood setting felt oddly stripped down compared to the potential richness of the source material. There was tension, too, around the tone. Was this supposed to be a darker sequel? A lighter, quippier adventure? Internally, sources suggested Fox wanted something that could feel like a Marvel light. Fast, fun, accessible. But the end result was tonal whiplash. One moment, the characters were confronting trauma. The next, they were joking about Hermes' UPS outfit. In 2013, Fox released Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters. A sequel, yes, but also a soft reboot. New tone, new monsters, and an attempt to win back fans. It didn't work. At the time, fans still held out hope. Fan trailers for the Sea of Monsters flooded YouTube. Hashtags like #Percy Jackson deserves better trended. Some even made full-on trailers for Titan's Curse. Others created elaborate fan posters for Logan Lerman in full Poseidon armor. There was a sense that maybe Fox had learned. For a brief moment, it felt like this could become the next big YA franchise after Harry Potter. Even though Sea of Monsters tried to course correct, it still fell into the same traps. Rushed pacing, flat character arcs, and shallow world building. The magic wasn't there, the chemistry wasn't there, and most importantly, the faithfulness wasn't there. The movie earned less than the first, and killed the franchise dead. No Titan's Curse, no Battle of the Labyrinth, no Last Olympian, just silence. For over a decade, behind the scenes, there were whispers of scripts being rewritten, new directors being approached, even rumors of a darker, grittier reboot, but none of it materialized. The brand sat in limbo, caught between studio indecision and fan frustration. So what really went wrong? The Percy Jackson books are more than just action and mythology. They're about trauma, about belonging, and about seeing ADHD and dyslexia not as flaws, but as hidden strengths. At its core, the series is about identity, about kids who don't fit in discovering that they actually belong to something much bigger than themselves. Hollywood didn't get that. They looked at Percy Jackson and saw another Harry Potter. They thought they were building a new magical blockbuster with gods instead of wizards. But Rick Riordan wasn't Rowling, Percy wasn't Harry, and this wasn't a story about defeating evil in a neat final battle. It was a journey through chaos, misunderstandings, and emotional growth. That fundamental misreading led to choices that stripped away what made the books resonate with so many readers. Instead of leaning into the series' emotional truth, the films tried to copy a formula and lost the magic in the process. There was also the issue of studio interference. From the decision to age up the characters, to the tone shift toward teen drama, to action set pieces that felt more blockbuster than myth, the studio kept pulling the story away from what it wanted to be. Visually, the films lacked consistency, with generic CGI monsters and uninspired color palettes that clashed with the vibrant mythos of the books. Every change flattened the characters, every note pushed it further from Riordan's vision. The lack of consistency didn't help either. The second movie barely even felt like a sequel. Characters changed, tones shifted, and the lore was muddled. There was no long-term plan, no guiding vision, just a scramble to keep the franchise going without truly understanding how or why. By trying to appeal to everyone, action fans, romance lovers, mythology buffs, the films ended up appealing to no one. They lost the sharp, specific identity that made the book stand out in the first place. And like so many other failed young adult franchises, from The Giver to Aragon to The Mortal Instruments, Percy Jackson was rushed to the screen by studios chasing trends, not storytelling. It became another victim of intellectual property culture. The idea that a best-selling title alone is enough to build a franchise, even without the care it takes to make it last. Fans never stopped loving the books. Despite the movie mess, Percy Jackson stayed relevant through spin-offs, Heroes of Olympus and Trials of Apollo, merch, fanfic, and an incredibly loyal online community. There were fan campaigns to reboot the films. Hashtags like #RedRiordan trended on Twitter. Fan casts circulated constantly, some with real cinematic polish. Even actors from the original films admitted the project didn't live up to its potential. Logan Lerman later admitted in an interview, "I signed on hoping it would be something great, but it wasn't what the fans deserved." He also expressed hope that one day the story would get the faithful adaptation it truly deserved. And what if they had gone animated instead? A faithful, stylized adaptation. Less budget, more heart. Could that have been the version fans always deserved? So where does this leave us? The Percy Jackson movies are a classic example of a franchise that had all the ingredients, but none of the soul. They didn't fail because the world wasn't compelling, or because the audience wasn't there. They failed because the people in charge didn't understand what made the story special. While Harry Potter stayed mostly faithful and grew with its audience, Percy Jackson rushed the process and lost its soul in the rewrite. Ask any fan and they'll tell you the same thing. We didn't need flashy effects. We needed camp Half-Blood to feel real. We needed the gods to feel ancient. We needed Percy to feel like us. The heart of the series was never the monsters. It was the moments in between them. And now, over a decade later, fans still wonder, what if the original movies had worked? Would we have gotten a full 5-film arc? A Heroes of Olympus spin-off? A Disney theme park? And others wonder, what if they'd waited just a few years and let Rick lead from the start? Or even more radically, what if they had never done a movie and instead launched as as a series from the start, the way fans engage with stories now. It's one of the great what-ifs of modern YA. But here's what matters. Sometimes a story gets a second chance, and Percy Jackson, demigod, son of Poseidon, world saver, might someday still get the epic he deserves. Let us know what you think. Did the movies ruin your love for the books? Or did they just make you want the real story even more? Drop a comment and hit like if you want more deep dives into failed franchises, misunderstood stories, and the redemptions they still might earn. Thanks for watching, and welcome to our channel where we unpack the stories that mattered and the ones that could have mattered even more, because sometimes the stories that fail on screen only remind us how deeply they succeeded on the page. But tell us, do you think Percy still has one great adaptation left?